This week I set out across mid-Atlantic fields and orchards to see what the light would yield. Welcome to my channel. I'm Ken Evans, a black and white photographer from Maryland. In this short film, Harvest, I'll share how photographic choices weave into a larger story about awareness. Harvest season always reminds me of what matters most: patience, attention, and the ongoing art of seeing better. Every harvest begins with seeing, to learn how light behaves, how it rests on soil and shimmers across corn stubble. My camera waits like a quiet witness. I frame, and then I wait too. Photography and farming share this rhythm: patience and repetition and reward. Both camera and tractor are just tools. A warning sign stands at the edge of a sleepy back road. Slow. Farmland gives that instruction daily. Nothing here hurries. I try to match the pace, stopping for the buzz of insects and the faint whisper of wind in drying corn stalks. I dial in a large aperture to hold the foreground in focus while dulling the background. Gathering light takes thought, and the best results rarely come from quick work. 3 telephone poles slice into a gray sky. Geometry and rhythm set the mood for this image. Simplicity almost always draws me. I guess I'm a minimalist at heart. I photograph scenes like this to test restraint, how little is needed to tell the moment's story. This old well house was all alone, its walls solid and roof straight, the window set with candles for darker times. It reminds me that photography, a little like carpentry, is about making things last longer. I wanted this image to be sharp. f11 aperture, a 1/4 second exposure. The clouds move just enough to blur, and time slips in the image, just enough to give the minimal setting slightly more weight. A tractor's rake rusting in an open and fallow field, its teeth silhouetted in fading daylight. The curve struck me, a design born for rugged use. I crouched close, debating whether to freeze the shadow or let it blur. Fast shutter, crisp edge, or slow exposure for the ghost of motion. In the end, I felt the static piece should live a little. What would you have done? This field of corn is ready for harvesting, its many husks pulled back by dry weather and time. What's revealed on a single stalk feels more sculptural than edible. I move in close to study the texture, how shadow curves along the husk and softens at the edges. In examples like this, my photography becomes less about the landscape or the field, and more about form itself. I look for a more intimate image with a focus that's more deliberate and complete. This road rolls through the Pennsylvania hills, bordered by fruit trees that follow the land's memory. Crops of every kind press towards the moment of harvest, and the whole scene feels heavy with waiting. I raise the camera higher than usual, trying to take in the lay of it all. Soft light moves across the field. In every direction, the season felt poised to burst. I made the image to capture that abundance. Harvesters growl across the open field from a long distance away. Dust turns to haze, and haze turns to atmosphere. Motion and distance and contrast. Fast shutter for detail, or slower to let the blur tell its own story. I shoot both ways. Later, I culled the many frames to find which version carried the most truth of what I saw. This is the image I chose. The wagons and the field hands rolled past with a mix of mechanical sounds and laughter. It was a bright and lively mix. Bodies and hands moved in rhythm, lifting, sorting, laughing. I photographed from the side, aware of how their work shaped their grace. There is choreography in their labor, people, tools, and time moving together. My attempt was to capture the work, the emotion, and the movement. Rows of wooden apple crates stand full, edges darkened by years of exposure to juice and weather. I smell sweetness and soil. Days of light captured in growth and now stored briefly in wood. Photography works the same way. Each image is like a crate of time, filled with individual moments, alive, fragrant, and whole. Raindrops hold tiny reflections of the light in the apple orchard. I move closer until focus on the fruit becomes narrow. Depth of field shrinks to the one place I want you to look. The scene tells me when to stop. The image is ready, not because I control it necessarily, but because it feels right artistically. This is enough. Rounded forms nestled in a harvest wagon. The color orange transforms into texture in black and white, a study of tone, not hue. I focus on patterns, weight, and curve. This is where my photography often drifts toward abstraction, meaning steps aside and light makes sculpture even from the ordinary. As you can tell by now, this week was all about the pumpkins. Here, the pile fills my frame, a tangle of spheres and stems and blemishes, a fragment from a mound of hundreds of vegetables. I lower exposure until the highlights just breathe. This week, I gathered what remained, the shapes and the silence and the proof of another annual cycle completed. One pale form, a white pumpkin, rests alone. Simple and perfect, I centered it, then reconsidered, moving slightly left to break the symmetry of the composition. I want to find balance in the tension, light on one side and shadow on the other, and the calm between. Sometimes composing the shot can almost feel like meditation. Inside the barn, the air is cool and thick with the scent of apples. Beams in the dark, apples relaxing, light filters through cracks. The image breathes just enough to hold the darkness. I wanted everything to feel stored. Work, hope, and the faint echo of satisfaction that comes with all harvests, that sustenance is secured. Night lifted over the horizon, and the moon rose cold and bright in the east. I set up my tripod, set a 2-second timer, and pressed the camera's shutter. Harvest for me for this week ended here, not in abundance, but in increased awareness. What began as crops became images, and what began as light became a better understanding of myself and my photography. This week taught me that gathering is more than taking. It is listening, it is waiting, it is recognizing that light itself can be a harvest. Thank you for joining me on this week's journey through the fields and light of the Mid-Atlantic. Each week I share new black and white work and the stories behind it, from open landscapes to the quieter edges of abstraction. If you'd like to see more, you can subscribe or simply return when you need a moment of calm and reflection. And remember, black and white art is art for anywhere.